Yeah, hello and good afternoon from ABB in Germany in Heidelberg. My name is Thorsten Reibel. Yeah, welcome to our next webinar with the topic Digital Addressable Lighting Interface, DALI. I'm sitting here together as always with Jürgen, and we will share this webinar. Before we start, some organizational topics. First of all, it will take around 1 hour, our webinar. If you want, you can send us in the chat on the lower right side during the webinar some questions. We try to answer these questions at the end of the webinar. If not possible, you will get later on an answer in our feedback email, which will be sent to you in a few days, containing, of course, a presentation you will see here, but also the recorded webinar itself. And then also maybe some additional answers to your questions. At the end of the webinar, you will be linked to a small examination with a few questions around this topic DALI, this webinar. So please try to answer these questions, and then you have completed our webinar. If not possible right now, no problem. We will send you a reminder also in the feedback email. We will send you the link then again. Okay, so I will start right now, followed later on by Jürgen. Yeah, what will be the content of our webinar today? First of all, we talk about DALI in general today, more or less only. So what is DALI? What is behind DALI? Some basic information, followed by some details about the actual DALI standard. IEC 62386 is the actual standard, which will be very soon in the next year expanded, called now then, or will be called then DALI 2 or Edition 2. So there are some changes which might be interesting already right now. Yeah, then we go in some more technical details, the technology, but we will see also a bit about applications. Yeah, existing DALI devices on the market, you will get some information. And also at the end, a short overview of our existing DALI KNX Gateways. You know, we have the option to connect DALI with KNX. But it's not the topic today really, so we have only a small overview. So we will concentrate today really on the basics of DALI itself. Yeah, DALI stands for Digital Addressable Lighting Interface. The subject DALI is a synonym for a standard, very important, also here a standardized system, independent of the manufacturer. So many manufacturers are in this group. Yeah, to control electronic ballast devices and lamps the digital way. So the task is lighting control, pure lighting control on different levels. And we can say that DALI cover most of the applications around lighting. Maybe only some specialties will be reserved for special systems. But yeah, it's a manufacturer independent system, a standardized protocol. We come to this a bit later. Yeah, to control any kind of lamps with the dedicated electronic ballast you need additionally. Yeah, one topic is here to replace more and more also 1 to 10 volt technology, which is another solution. You see here a classical, let me see, 1 to 10 volt installation where you need wires, control wires from any controller with a 1 to 10 volt signal to the lamp itself. So you need for each lamp you would like to control independently the signal or this wiring. Yeah? You need a lot of controller depending on the channels of these controllers. So compared to DALI, you need more wiring, more components, and you have less flexibility because everything is hardwired. If we have the first view to a DALI system, more or less we have a 2 wires control cable which will be connected in parallel to all our light fixtures with an electronic ballast behind. So we have less wiring, yeah, and of course whatever gateway can be a KNX gateway, but can be also another control unit, a touch panel if you have a standalone system. So you have here on the control side less wiring, less components, and you have more flexibility. We will see that we can later on address each lamp and create any groups, any individual lighting control out of this system. So one topic is here more or less to replace also 1 to 10 volt technology. So Yeah, DALI has been established already for commercial buildings, you can say, so it's in use in a lot of commercial projects. And as already mentioned, it's replaces or expands the 110 volt technology. This will be more and more replaced. Additionally, it's recognized by light architects for any kind of special lighting, light effects, colored lighting, for example. Comes very often. LED lighting, very often used together with DALI. And as you know, also gateways exists from DALI to other systems. In our case, we have, of course, our DALI KNX Gateways, which allows you to do more or bigger projects, especially if you talk about big commercial projects. Then you have normally any gateways to a superior system in use. In our case, of course, we prefer KNX. But it's not only related to KNX, also for other superior building automation solutions, gateways to DALI exists. Some basic functions at the beginning only. Of course, lighting control means switching on and off, clear. But of course, also dimming is possible. For example, also setting any brightness value is easily possible to jump to a dedicated brightness value. The way of dimming is very smooth, very, let me say, comfortable for the human being, because the dimming curve is, let me say, adapted to the sensitivity of the human eye. So you see a very even, very smooth dimming process from very low levels to the maximum, a further advantage of the DALI solution. If you activate any scenes, light scenes, you will see this later on. So numerous lights will be switched on to a dedicated lighting level, can be different lighting levels. Then all lights reach the end value, the end brightness value at the same time. So a very comfortable way of activating light scenes, for example. In a DALI system, we can control individual lights. Each lamp in principle is controllable, but also any groups you can create. And these groups can be changed later on. So one big advantage is additionally the flexibility. So with any hardwired system like 1 to 10 volt, it's not possible, or only with rewiring. Here it's much easier together with a DALI technology behind. And a further important aspect is the status feedback, what we can get out of the system. Typically any status messages like, is the lamp on or off, what is the actual brightness value. But even more important is the information, is there any lamp failure or any electronic ballast failure existing, which leads of course to a malfunction of the lighting, at least of part of the lighting. So this can be sent as a feedback on the system, on DALI, but furthermore to any superior building automation system like KNX, can be evaluated, displayed, and of course you can react much easier without this information. So let's come a bit to the basics of DALI, the foundation of DALI, which was in 1999, so over 15 years ago. DALI started, and it was created out of a working group in a German, let me say, electrical and electronic manufacturer association. So the working group DALI was established to create a superior system, digital system for lighting control. This was the origin, and of course ABB Stotz-Kontakt is also a member since 2003 and works also in this working group. But there are many more members in this group. You see here some examples of other companies. Many of them are typical producers of electronic ballast components around lighting, like Philips, for example, like Osram, like Tridonic, for example, or many other manufacturers are in this group and supporting DALI and offering hard and software solutions around DALI. And as DALI is a standard system with a standardized protocol, we come to this a bit later, it makes sense for many companies to join this group and to participate in the growing DALI market. If you want, you can go on the homepage of the DALI organization, dali-ag.org. Here you will find a lot of more information about, of course, the technology, about existing products, solutions and projects, Yeah, I can recommend to sign in a newsletter, where you will get also some more information, actual information if available. So time by time you get an email with some more information around DALI, what's changing and developing there, if you want. Yeah, this working group DALI, what is the task of the working group? Of course, the worldwide distribution of DALI is a target. And though it started years ago here in Germany and Europe, we can really say right now it's an international system, and in many countries DALI is known and used. More and more countries create solutions together with DALI. So it's a real success story, but of course there's always something to do to promote the system. Another big topic, compatibility, interchangeability, as already mentioned. It has to work, of course, because everybody expects this and would like to choose different DALI devices which can work together, of course. Yeah. And in general, of course, support of the use of DALI is the target of the DALI working group. Yeah. If a manufacturer develops a new component, it's not necessary to certify or register such a DALI device. Yeah. There is a test procedure behind to more or less check is it in compliance with the DALI rules, but not like KNX, where you have to register and certify a KNX product at an independent registration or a laboratory, let's say. That's a bit different here, but I will come to some more details about testing of new DALI devices. Yeah, DALI lighting system is first of all a standalone solution. It can work completely independent of any other superior system. Yeah, though also this will be shown later on. It's more and more in use together with the superior system. Yeah? So, but DALI describes itself as a subsystem for lighting control, but not as a real bus system. A bus system in building automation can do more than lighting control, like KNX. Yeah, let's come a bit to the standardization around DALI. So it's based on an international norm standard, IEC 62386. Yeah? And there are different parts inside this norm describing in general what is necessary for a DALI system, describing the technology around the ballasts, about, for example, LED driver and all the components which can be part of the solution. Yeah? And this is not new, as already mentioned. Over 10 to 15 years the system already exists, but in the last years DALI has really proven its reliability, and his professional way of lighting control, and has also shown a growing market. So it's a real success story, and of course we would like to continue this successful system. We would like to develop this continuously. So this IEC standard defines some technical data and the general, let me say, requirements. Some technical data like the current and voltage, the timing of the protocol is described, the protocol itself, which is a standard, and also test conditions for electronic ballasts. That's the actual status at the moment. We come to this. And as already mentioned, this will be expanded, the standard, to a new IEC standard, DALI Edition 2. In short words, I come to this as well. It's more or less in the working group finalized, not completely at the moment, but more or less. And most probably it will be launched next year, 2016. So then the manufacturer can develop and produce products which are in compliance with this new DALI standard. So it's still a bit future, but will come for sure. But the existing IEC standard, here are some more details to understand what parts inside the standard. So we have part 101, general requirements for the system. Then all the control gears, means electronic ballasts we need for different kind of lamps. It's also here described in part 102 in general. And then we have for different, already now existing special components or special lighting solutions, also special parts, for example, for low voltage halogen, for any fluorescent lighting, for color control, so cold and warm white control, for example, or for emergency lighting. There are also some some details specified to describe the solution in the standard around this one here. So that's already existing, was established in the last years. And yeah, the target is to produce, of course, worldwide DALI devices according to the standard. Yeah? And as mentioned, there is no registration or certification necessary. Yeah? But some years ago, there was also introduced a DALI test system. Yeah? To guarantee high interoperability between all the existing DALI devices. Yeah? And I showed on the next slide, there is a piece of hardware and software. So under defined conditions, hardware and software of the DALI devices can be approved or can be tested. Yeah? And yeah, it's available for any DALI member in the DALI group. And yeah, and if you have done this testing process, you are allowed to print on your components a DALI logo. You see always on the upper left side here, that's a standard DALI logo we have at the moment. So this testing process already available shall guarantee this interoperability. Yeah, you see it here in some more details. What is condition for this? You have to be part of this working group. Have to sign an agreement, of course. Yeah, and then based on this system, you can test your components. So you see here the hardware you need and also software, and finally you have some test results. And of course, if you fulfill the requirements, then you can register your component as a DALI organization, and then you're also sure as a manufacturer that your product is in compliance with the DALI rules. So that's the actual situation. I cannot guarantee at the moment that every company is conducting such a test, but of course that's the target. And if you don't do this, you are not officially allowed to print the DALI logo on your component. Yeah, so now we go to the next level, DALI 2. That is, I think, for most of you also new. As already mentioned, more or less finished now, the internal discussion and the documentation of this new DALI standard. So the reason is, the original DALI standard is almost 15 years old. And of course, there were some technical changes, some new developments, some new requests from the market, and so it has to be changed now. Has to be adapted and has to be developed right now. Yeah? So there are new parts inside this new standard. Part 101 and 102 were necessary to revise, to introduce also further devices. So this is not completely new here. Part 101, 102, but was revised. New are part 103 for different kind of additional control devices, which can be any touch panels, displays, any sensors like motion or light sensors, any controller, whatever it means. So the system will be open to more additional components inside the DALI system. And also these dedicated new components are described in some more details in some subparts in part 3. So it's a real extension. You will see also on the next slide. And of course, there were done also some improvements, some clarifications in the technical documentation, always to improve the interoperability of all the DALI components. But let's have a look to the next slide. So on the left side, this is not new. The general requirements for the system and the ballast, let's say, was revised or will be revised to edition 2. And this is completely new on the right side here. So further, maybe not yet existing, but in future existing devices are described here. Control devices, you see a light sensor, for example, any element which can directly adjust a colored light in a building, in a room, for example. Yeah. We will see which products will come in the future, but this will be an additional part in the total standardization IEC 62386. Yeah, let's summarize what will be new, and you see already the new icon for DALI 2. It consists of the same original DALI icon with an additional figure here, number 2. Yeah, and clear message here, DALI would like to improve the interoperability of all existing DALI devices. Yeah? So it's more or less a bit future also. This version 2 allows now to create or to develop new components from all of the manufacturers, of course. So we will see what happens in the future. And yeah, in this part 103, there's also described the single and multi-master system, or more or less a multi-master system, which is new. At the moment, the DALI system, the existing DALI system, is based on a single master. What is a master? A master is a component which can send actively by itself a command, a telegram on the DALI system. For example, our KNX DALI Gateway is such a component. Yeah? So it can send directly. Or if you have a standalone DALI system, any sensor, any group or scene controller, any touch panel could be a master, but only one master was allowed up to now only in the system. And DALI 2 also will also allow multi-master concept, so more components which can actively by itself send any commands to other components. And the slaves behind are typically the ballasts, electronic ballasts, which are operating the lights behind. So it will be possible to add maybe a presence detector, or not only one or two presence detectors, any additional touch panels, and many of them into one standalone DALI system. So that's completely new. So besides these 64 slaves we can integrate in one DALI system, up to 64 masters will be allowed in future. So this was leading to some extension of the definition of the DALI system itself. Some more components are now possible, and let's say the data format which will be sent in one command on the DALI bus is also extended. We have now a 24-bit or 3-byte structure, and former times up to now it was 2-byte, so 16-bit. And due to the extended addressing we need for the multi-master, also this data format had been changed. Yeah? And last but not least, also some manufacturer-specific modes are defined here. Yeah, you see there is a real development, more components, multi-master concept will be allowed, but at the moment not yet reality. It will come next year most probably, and then we will see what the market will offer in future. Yeah, you see here again these two logos, so also the old one will still exist, so it's still possible to use a normal DALI logo for the existing components, DALI components, and as you see here the additional two showing DALI 2 version. Our DALI KNX gateways are already in compliance with the basic requirements of DALI 2. Part 101 and 102, we fulfill this already, but we should be careful. This does not mean that with all our DALI KNX gateways we can work together with any future components which are in compliance with DALI 2. That's not the topic. At the moment we can only be in compliance with these basic functions or basic requirements, general requirements of the DALI standard. So message of DALI 2 is also to improve the compatibility of DALI, all DALI components in future. And I mentioned already the standard test procedure we have right now for the DALI system which is existing at the moment. And in DALI 2 it will be improved. This way that of course you have your development of your product, and then similar but more extended test procedure will take place. To test your component in accordance with DALI Standard 2. The test results have to be uploaded to a so-called DALI server to store all this data, and available for anybody. So you can have a look, is this product from this company in accordance with DALI Standard 2? So transparency is the target, and a mandatory test procedure for every new DALI component. Good, so a bit information about the standardization. I think it's important to understand the actual situation, but even more the future situation. I think it's a good development, and we are looking forward to see what's going on in the future in this regard. So let's come to real DALI right now, to more practice, to more applications. I've mentioned already a bit what we can do with DALI. Light effects, any light scenes can be adjusted. Control of LEDs is fantastically very good way possible. Daylight control, not yet mentioned, for energy saving, either possible. This lamp and ballast failure is a fantastic, let me say, feature of DALI. And any let me say, kind of special lighting, colored lighting, light scenes, dynamic lighting is possible with DALI, yeah, and will be used also. But I come back to this topic, connection to superior systems again. For example, together with our KNX DALI Gateways. Practically many projects are like the following, that we have any office building, for example. DALI is preferred to use, but you connect or you integrate this DALI system into a superior building automation system, and in total you have a good solution, not only for lighting, but also for all the other functions in the building, and that is a big market already now. And of course our interest from ABB, as we have the KNX DALI Gateways, and we would like to integrate the very good DALI solution into our KNX world to complete the complete building automation. Some more facts and figures around DALI. A DALI standalone system can have up to 64 DALI devices at the moment, which are the slaves. These 64 light fixtures, DALI addresses, can be allocated to 16 groups, lighting groups, and up to 16 light scenes can be adjusted. If I do so, all these settings are stored in the ballast itself, in each light with the electronic ballast behind. And as already mentioned, in Edition 2, DALI Edition 2, we have these multi-master concepts, so can add up to 64 masters, additionally to the 64 DALI slaves. This will be reality in future. A small practical example which kind of typical functions we have in a DALI system. So what you see here, a bit abstract, is on the left, DALI controller, any operating element. So let's say the master to operate any slaves, and the slaves are DALI ballast, electronic ballast, operating any type of light fixtures behind. So for each type of light we have a dedicated DALI ballast necessary. But Jürgen will show you later on some examples of products. All these DALI ballasts are connected in parallel via 2 wires cable to each other, and also to the master, of course. And as we have power necessary for the lights itself, we need also 230 volt. Each DALI ballast gets a DALI address, can be assigned to any lighting group and to any light scene if you want. So let's have some examples here. First of all, let's take an example for any multi-controller here, whatever it means, a kind of input for conventional push buttons, but a DALI device. And this component, for example, could activate a broadcast command. A broadcast command is always possible in DALI. It's an additional feature, operating all DALI ballasts behind at the same time, switching or dimming, whatever you want. So all on in this example. Broadcast command, always available. Furthermore, we can say, okay, we have any touch box here. We would like to operate each lamp individually. No problem, we can do this. We can switch any address on or off, or we can dim it to any value individually, either possible. Or if it's not enough, we need group functions. We can have any group controller, for example. So you create groups and assign any DALI ballast to a group. So any groups are possible. In this case, address number 3 is member of group 3, as well as address number 1 and address number 2. And of course, I can send a command to operate group number 3 at the same time by switching on, for example, but also by sending a command that it shall be dimmed to a certain level. And maybe this one is completely on here, 100% on. So-called groups. And finally, some scenes also possible. Light scene, typically, light scenes. What does it mean? Either a group of lights behind go to any level. Here you see different light levels for different kind of lamps. It's also possible to store new scenes if you want. So there are a lot of more options together with this light scene management. up to 16 light scenes can be created in DALI. Good. Yeah, then now I would stop. I would hand over to Jürgen right now. He goes in some more details around the system, around wiring, and around the existing DALI components on the market. And yeah, just a moment, please.
Hello and a warm welcome to the second part of this webinar. My name is Jürgen Schilder and I'm continuing with the technical data of the DALI system and some overview of some DALI devices like DALI operating elements or DALI control elements, and at the end I'd like to show you an overview of our existing KNX DALI gateways. So firstly, let me start with the DALI technology. DALI is not a bus system, so we have still a transfer rate of 1200 bits per second. So it is 8 times lower than our KNX technology. So DALI is also now with our existing DALI standard a master-slave system. So it is only allowed to have one master in our DALI system with maximum these 64 DALI devices. So DALI is not a bus system, so we have also no collision mechanism. So theoretically, when two devices start sending a telegram, which can be possible, for example, to group or scenario controllers, then we can get a collision. So that's why in a standard system it's only allowed to have one master. And the next step, the DALI system is not a centralized system. We need only a DALI power supply, DALI control elements and DALI operating elements, so there is no PC or central device running which pulls all our DALI devices. For the communication between all our 64 DALI devices we need only 2 cores of a cable or 2 wires. So the next slide you will see more about the topology and how we can connect all the devices here to the DALI system. The supply voltage, which comes from our DALI power supply, is about 16 volts DC. So the range, which is specified by the DALI activity group, is between 9 and 22 volts. But in reality, you cannot measure via digital multimeter these 16 volts, because on these 16 volts we have our communication between the DALI devices. So here we have our bits, the 1 and the 0, and though when you take a digital multimeter you cannot really measure the correct voltage. The best thing is you take an oscilloscope, and via the oscilloscope you can see this voltage. But a digital multimeter shows you not the correct DC voltage. So the DALI power supply is allowed to produce maximum 250 milliamps. That's the maximum current of a typical DALI power supply. So in each of our DALI devices can use up to 2 milliamps maximum. And now at the moment we can connect up to 64 DALI devices, and each needs 2 milliamps, so we need maximum 128 milliamps. So it's enough for one DALI power supply. Very important, the DALI system is not a so-called a safety extra low voltage. So be careful, KNX is safety extra low voltage, but not our DALI system. So be here careful. So in all DALI devices are now wired parallel to the DALI cable to these 2 cores, like typical also our KNX devices. Here you can see an overview of such a DALI system. Remember, we need here one power supply, and then we can have up to 64 DALI devices now. So the topology, everything is possible, like a star, like a tree for example, or here in series. But what is not allowed is to make a loop or a ring, like for example here the blue one. You see there is a mistake in the wiring, so here we have a ring, and then we get a conflict for the communication here on the DALI. So be careful that there's no ring or loop in the wiring of the DALI cables. So DALI is not a safety extra low voltage. That's why it is possible to use, for example, here one cable with 5 cores or wires. So we need, for example, for our DALI system 2 of these cores, like for example here the gray one and the black one, for the communication and to supply the DALI devices with the energy. The polarity doesn't matter, so sometimes you can see DALI plus and DALI minus, but you can make here reverse polarity. It does not affect our DALI system, so in principle the system is polarity free. To supply our DALI driver or our operating elements, our ballast. We can use here, for example, the neutral, and here our phase with 230 volt, and here the course number 5 is our protection earth. So in an installation you can use here this cable and connect it here all our 64 DALI devices. This is allowed according to this IEC DALI standard. But be careful, read also your national regulations or your standards. In some countries it is not allowed to have one cable for the energy and maybe here for communication or for low voltage signals. In principle, according to the DALI standard, it is allowed, but be careful in your country. So here we have, for example, a typical room like in a school. Here, for example, a teacher's desk with some DALI sensors for switching the light. Here on the entrance we have also one sensor to switch on, for example, some basic function, basic light groups. And here we have some lights, some spots on this side of the wall and here on the other side of the wall. And here these 3 spots here in front of our blackboard. And some light groups, like here our light strip number 1, the next 2 light strips belong to one group, and here these 2 light strips should also belong to one light group. So in traditional way you have to wire to each of our ballast the cables, but with DALI it looks a little bit different. In DALI we have, for example, here our DB. We need only one cable with 5 cores. Here we go on this way, one cable in this direction to connect here all our devices, all these downloads. Here are the light strips, and with a second cable, for example, we connect here these 3 spots in front of our blackboard and the halogen spots like here on the left side of our wall. So we have here fixed wired all our DALI devices here to our DALI system. So later via software, for example, programming software, we can create here our light groups and we can address the DALI devices and we can configure here our switches. So here nothing is really hardwired, so everything here is flexible by using this DALI system. And you can see we need only our cable with the 5 cores and connect all our maximum 64 DALI devices. So some words here about the cable. According to the worldwide standard, it is possible to use one cable with the supply voltage and the DALI. Here's a recommendation, or maybe a mathematics thing, how you can calculate the cross section of your cable. For example, here we have the cross section in square millimeters. Then we need here the length of our cable of the DALI system. So each meter, the total length of each meter of the cable multiplied the maximum current. So remember, each DALI device can use up to 2 milliamps, multiplied by the number of your DALI devices, multiplied 0.018, and then you get a minimum cross section here of your cable. Okay, this you can calculate it, but here maybe it's a recommended basis. When you have your cable up to 100 meter, it's enough to have here 0.5 square millimeters, or between 100 to 150 meters to have 0.75, or up to 300 meter you can use cable with 1.5 square meters. Or the best thing is to use every time this type of standard installation cable, and then you have not to fear about the diameter or cross section of your cable. So let me show you 2 variants of the DALI system. The DALI system was developed as a typical standalone system in maybe shops, in pubs or in small restaurants, for switching and also for dimming the light. But today we can integrate all these benefits or advantages of DALI also in superior system, like in facility managements, in other systems, in IP systems, for example, LON or also KNX. And then we need gateways to send telegrams from the superior system into the DALI world. But we get also feedback like status messages or ballast failure or lamp failure into our KNX system, for example. So here, next slide, you will see an overview of a typical DALI standalone system, like at the beginning. So we need here on the upper right side our DALI power supply. The DALI power supply supplies all our maximum 64 DALI devices with energy. So we need here two cores, for example here to a DALI relay module, DALI transformer, DALI ballast, DALI driver, RGB converter, all so-called operation devices. And on the left side we can see our so-called DALI control devices, like here our DALI group controller. This is a kind of device like we have it in our KNX world, the universal interface. So this is a kind of input module, and we can connect here standard mechanical push buttons. So no special DALI sensors available, only such typical input modules to connect standard push buttons. We have group controllers, or later I explain you here also this so-called scene controllers. And these devices send the commands on the DALI world, and here our operating elements, they are listening to the commands for switching, dimming, and scene applications, for example, to sequences and such more things. This was the idea when they found this system here, our DALI system. But today we want to use all these benefits and the advantage of the system in our maybe superior system. So DALI now is limited up to 64 devices, but via gateway we can integrate these devices in maybe in airports or in hotels with more than 64 devices. And at the moment there are gateways available, of course, to the KNX system, but here also to IP, to the Ethernet, or like here to LON, to other systems. So when you go on Google and type DALI gateway, then you will find maybe also gateways to other systems. So here's a typical office building. Here we have the different floors with small offices or open office. And we use here, for example, a technology like KNX or other system. Via the gateways, it is possible to send commands from here from presence detector or from KNX sensors via the DALI gateway into here our DALI subline for switching the light, for dimming, to call scenes or scenarios or sequences and such things. And all these maximum 64 slaves can send back their status, I'm on, off, the brightness value, and additional the master can monitor all the 64 devices, and though we know the status of the 64 ballast, if there's for example a lamp failure or ballast failure, and then we have the information here on KNX, and then maybe we can trigger alarm message, or when you have a visualization to pop up a window, please replace the lamp in the floor number 5 in this room. So we integrate all these advantages here of our DALI system into our, for example, KNX system. So the next step, I'd like to introduce you some typical DALI devices. So at the beginning, the so-called DALI power supply. There are a lot of manufacturers. They have different types of DALI power supplies. For example, one small solution here for decentralized installation, maybe in a fault ceiling or here in a distribution board to fix it here on a DIN rail. But the maximum current of each of these DALI power supply is limited up to 250 milliamps. So for programming, for example, of the ballast, we need a special interface between DALI and USB, which is a so-called USB interface. Like here, one picture of a manufacturer. It comes from Tridonic, but also Helva or other manufacturers. They have similar USB interfaces. And via a separate software like the master configurator, it is possible to set the parameters in each of these ballasts. Like for example the power on level, the fading time, the maximum dimming level, and so on. This USB interface allows additionally with another software which is called DALI Monitor to see the traffic on the DALI. So we recommend to use this DALI interface when in installation when there's, for example, gateways to KNX. So we can send commands via our KNX sensor, and via this USB interface we can see the command in the DALI world. And then we see the gateway works correct, or maybe there is a mistake in the programming of the DALI gateway, and so on. It makes sense, for example, to have this USB interface with you, and then we can see here the command comes from the KNX world, yes or no, and also maybe the number of a device or the group, or switching the light on or off, and so on. So the next step, we have the so-called control devices, like our devices which can send telegrams to the DALI system. At first, the so-called group controller, GC. It's a kind of input module, we have here two different inputs, and on these inputs we can connect standard push buttons, and depending here on this rotary switch, so you can set it here via a screwdriver, for example, in up to 16 different positions. The group control, by pressing here one input, the group controller sends group telegrams to the ballast or to our control elements. So for example, when we set here this rotary switch to the position 2, and then when we press the push button on input 1, then it sends the command group number 2 on, off or dimming, and when we press on the push button which is connected to input number 2, then he sends the command group number 3 on, off. So that's a very easy maybe principle to configure or to parameterize such a control device like the group controller. Nearly similar is a so-called scene controller, the SE. The SE, here we have 4 different inputs, so we can connect here different standard push buttons as the same, and depending on this rotary knob, he calls different scenes. So when we set this rotary knob in the position 2, for example, and we press the push button on input number 1, then he calls the scene number 2. When we press the push button on input number 3, then he calls the scene number 4. And so depending on the position of this rotary switch here, he calls different numbers of the scene. So more intelligent device is a so-called multi-controller. So via the multi-controller we can also connect here up to 4 different standard push buttons, and this device is now configured also via separate programming software like the master configurator, because we can do so many things. We can call, we can send group commands on, off, dim. We can call light scenes. We can start and stop sequences. Sequences is a kind of different scenes, yeah, which will continue to be played. So a lot of more things. That's why this device now is programmed here via a separate software. So DALI allows also some kind of touch panels, or the name of this one here is so-called touch box. It's like here a sensor with up to 6 buttons, yeah, and here a touch panel. But also these devices now must be programmed via a separate software, and then these touch panels can be also monitor, for example, the DALI ballast or the DALI control elements. This is here possible. So maybe when one of our 64 ballast has a lamp failure or ballast failure, then we show it here also as a message here on this DALI touch panel. Additionally, with such of this touch panel, we can call also scenes or sequences and do a lot of more things. So DALI offers also some kind of presence sensors or light controller, like here to install it maybe on the ceiling, including also here a built-in infrared receiver to operate, for example, your devices here via remote controls like this one. So let's have a look at our operating devices, which are, for example, our so-called slaves devices, which cannot send telegrams. They can only receive telegrams. Yeah, like we have here our RGB driver, or here, for example, our standard for low voltage halogen and so on. But these so-called operating devices must be configured also by a separate software. Like, for example, here again the master configurator tool, which comes here from the company Tridonic, and via the software and including the USB interface, we have access here to the maximum 64 DALI devices, and then we can configure, for example, the DALI address or which the group allocation. So we can assign one DALI device in up to 16 groups, the values of the scenes, because all these values are stored inside the ballast. The dimming speed, how fast for dimming up and down, the minimum and maximum dim level, and also the power on level. The power on level, for example, is a value when we have mains failure and the mains voltage recoveries. So, for example, after mains failure, we can set here parameter, go to 100%, and then this DALI device switch on up to 100%. And another parameter is here the system failure level. This is a brightness value when we have DALI failure. So when DALI has a failure, then this ballast go here to this parameterized system failure level, which can be also 50% or 100%. It depends on the setting inside the device. So here is a screenshot of this DALI master configurator tool. So we see here in a list all our DALI devices, our groups, and then via different parameters we can, for example, send also commands into the DALI Vault by using this software. So we can click here on our USB interface, and then we can send also a kind of broadcast telegram. We can switch off all our 64 DALI devices. We can dim, we can jump here to the maximum brightness level, to the minimum brightness level, one step darker, one step brighter, for example. This is also possible, and we can call here also seen by this master configurator tool. Or we can click here on our DALI device, our first DALI device, and then we get here the details of this ballast. So for example, here the name of a device. This is a device which comes from the company Tridonic, and here the name of device is K211. So additionally, we see the firmware, the DALI firmware, which is inside this ballast, and additional some more information. So the group allocation, so this device here belongs, for example, to the group number 0, 1 and 2. The values when we call a scene, so when you tick it here and say scene number 0, we set here the value, for example, 100%. The next scene, 3%. When you want to that a device listen to scene number 7, so tick it here and write here the value. So here on the bottom we have the next parameters, the fading time in seconds. So via the slider we can change here the values. The minimum brightness level, the maximum brightness level, and remember the power on level. Power on level means when the mains voltage comes back, and then this device jumps to the value 100%. And the system failure value, which is here of mask. Mask means when there is DALI failure, he's doing nothing. And via the slider you can change it here, for example, to the position 100%, and then when we have DALI failure, this device jumps to the value 100%. So this is a not very complex software, for example, to do all the settings here in a DALI device. It depends on the type of a DALI device. In some DALI devices to have here also to set the correct output current. There are devices on the market, and then via buttons you can limit here the maximum output current. For example, 350 milliamps, 500 or 900 milliamps. It depends on your LED lamps you have connected. So next up, we can also do some tests with our selected DALI device. For example, here we can send dimming telegrams or brightness value. We can call the scenes or jump to the minimum or maximum level. This is all possible via this DALI master configuration tool. And the same here for the groups. We can send commands to the group, to the first group, for example. The maximum brightness value of a group, the minimum, or we can dim groups. This is also possible. And we can also here assign devices into the different maximum 16 groups. Good. So now I'd like to show you some so-called operating devices in details. So at first here the so-called electronic ballast for the fluorescence lamps, like here our T5 or T8 for example. This is a device which needs one DALI address, but it can have up to 2 outputs. Like here you see on the ceiling our fluorescence lamp, you have here two lamps inside, so and you need only one of this ballast, but both of these lamps will be controlled here by one DALI device. And here it depends on the dimming range, maybe between 1 and 100%. But sometimes it makes no sense to dim darker than 10%, and then you can change here the dimming range via the master configurator. Or here example of electronic transformers for low voltage halogen lamps, with an output voltage of 12 volt AC or DC. It depends here on the type or the manufacturer. The advantage of DC is that you can have up to 20 meter distance between your transformer here and your halogen lamps. Some devices you have a limitation between 1.5 or maximum 2 meters between your lamps and your ballast. So here a DALI dim actuator for typical incandescence lamps, like you have it here for example. Available also here for false ceiling or as a DIN rail component with different output power, maybe up to 300 watts or 1000. It depends on the manufacturer. Also available are so-called DALI switch actuator with 2 or 4 channels for 4 outputs, independent relays, 10 amps or 16 amps. But for example, like here we have a switch actuator with 4 independent relays, then it's one housing, one device, but the device needs 4 DALI addresses because each of the channel we want to switch independent from the other one. Or such a decentralized module like here, a relay module, also for switching maybe somewhere in the room. For controlling LEDs, we use some special devices. Some manufacturers call it DALI dimmer or LED dimmer or LED converter or LED driver. But in principle is that we can here connect so-called LEDs. Maybe like here, that's typical RGB, which means red, green and blue spots, or here LED strips. And then there are available on the market one-channel devices, and the device needs one address, maybe only for switching and dimming one color. If you want to have colored light, like here in this example, in the outside area, then we have here the LED strip. LED strip, we have red, green and blue LEDs. So this so-called LED driver needs 3 addresses. And there are also on the market some DALI devices or LED strips or lamps with up to 4 channels. Then we have red, green and blue and white as the device number 4. Then these special devices we need 4 addresses. Good, and DALI supports also self-contained emergency converters. Yeah, it is also specified here in this IEC DALI standard. Yeah, so it is possible to connect these devices like the root escape signs or here the emergency light with the LED. And via our superior system like KNX, we can also monitor these emergency lights and converters. Yeah, these devices must do maybe some tests, function tests or battery tests several times per year, and the test result can be recorded or sent to KNX and then recorded in our KNX world. So, next step, I'd like to give you a short overview of our existing DALI gateways. You have seen a lot of advantages of such a DALI system. For example, the colored light with all the LEDs, the status messages, the lamp failure, yeah, or the ballast failure. And via the gateways, we can send this information into our KNX world. So for different applications, we have different DALI gateways. But very important, when we use a DALI gateway, it's independent, the manufacturer. The DALI gateway is the master. And now with our DALI, the existing DALI standard, it is only allowed to have one DALI master, which is the gateway. And then we can connect up to 4 DALI so-called operating devices, the slaves, the RGB driver, the universal, the DALI dim actuator, DALI switch actuator and so on. No DALI power supply, nothing, because the DALI gateway has the power supply built inside. So only so-called stupid slaves or operation elements can be connected at the moment here to our DALI gateways. So here you can see the overview of some of all our ABB IBUS KNX DALI gateways. At first we have our DGS 8.1. This is like a typical 8-volt dim actuator, so-called. We have 8 channels and it's possible to connect up to 16 devices per channel. And via KNX we can control each of these 8 channels independent. So here we need no DALI addressing, nothing. So only connect all your 16 ballasts to one channel, and via KNX we can control all of these 8 channels independent. More flexibility is when we're using this DALI gateway, the GGS 1.1. Via the 1.1 we can connect up to 64 devices per channel, and via KNX we can send a command here to DALI device number 5 on, number 28 go to 50%, or number 61 for example switching a light off. So we have here 64 communications objects for switching, 64 for dimming and 64 for brightness value. So here via KNX we can really send individual commands to all our 64 devices. The next gateway is the 1.16. The same, we can connect up to 64 devices, but via our software, for example our DALI IBUS tool, we can create so-called groups, and we assign our DALI devices into this maximum 16 groups. That's why we have here 16. And via DALI we can send commands group number 1 on, group number 5, 50%, and so on. So this is also called the so-called group-oriented gateway. Nearly the same, we have here the DGNS, but the NS has additional software inside that we can here connect also the self-contained emergency light converter for the emergency light. Because this device must be tested several times per year, and here we have the additional software inside to trigger this test and to send back the test result to our KNX system. So for DALI constant light control, we have 2 special devices, which is the light controller DLRS, means light controller. Here inside we have our DALI Gateway 116, but the first 8 groups, that's why we have here the 8, for example, can be used for a constant light controller. So here we can connect up to 8 of these brightness sensors here to the DALI light controller. Plus the complete logic here for light control is inside here our light controller. And similar is our light controller DLR/A, which is maybe not a DIN rail component. It's possible to install it maybe in a false ceiling or decentralized in a room. The limitation here is that we have maximum 8 groups, and the first 4 groups can be used for constant light control. Good, so far a small overview. For more information, please visit our website abb.com/knx. Go to the product category number 8, which is our illumination and light sensors, and here you will find all needed information for DALI and our DALI gateways. Good, never forget our special tool, our so-called IBAS tool, which is free of charge. You can download it also from our website. Via this tool, we use it also, for example, for testing or for commissioning of some KNX devices. Plus, inside we have the so-called DALI tool software inside. Via this software we can see here the status of all 64 DALI devices. For example, here DALI device number 2 is okay, yellow lamp here, or here this DALI device we have a lamp failure, or here for example ballast failure. You can see here's also emergency converter installed, and when we have a group-oriented gateway, then we can assign here these devices into the groups, and we can do here also a lot of settings, which are also stored in the ballast. So here when you use a DALI gateway, it's not necessary to use the master configurator, because we do a lot of settings here via our IBAS tool or inside the ETS. Inside the ETS we have a lot of parameters where we can set, for example, the minimum, the maximum brightness level, the power on level. These are all parameters of the ETS. So when you use the DALI gateway, forget the DALI master configurator. You can do all the settings in the IBAS tool and inside the ETS. I think we're at the end of the webinar. The next webinar will take place in 4 weeks at the same time. On the morning 9 o'clock European time, and in the afternoon 3 o'clock. The same also on Wednesday 29th of July. The topic of the next webinar is security and surveillance. We talk about this fault monitoring and data logging. We have still 3 existing devices. They are not new, they are still in our product range overview, only to show what you can do with these devices. Thank you for taking part. Have a nice day, and we would like to say goodbye to all.
Ciao, see you
Ciao,
next time.
goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.